I feel the Spirit moving in me. I feel the Spirit moving in me.
Let's welcome Darlene Strickland. Bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Blaine, and thanks to each and every one of you. I was on the island for about 2.5 years. I think I was here for about 2 years, but as he said, I've certainly taught classes in this building, created other experiences together, met here, worked here during the week, but it was during a time where the services were held at the Filipino Community Center or the Seventh-day Adventist Church or the Maui Arts and Cultural Center. So we used to say to visitors, welcome Sunday. We were a church on the move. If you found us, it was divinely guided. But this is my first time back since leaving the island in 2010. And you know how it is when Mother Maui says it's time to come put your feet back on the island. And so I'm almost wrapping up my time. I've had 9 days to truly immerse myself in the mana in this beautiful place. And I'd like to, again, thank Blaine for the opportunity to do this, but perhaps even more importantly, to reflect back to each of you who have been the consciousness and the presence that has sustained this. You know, none of us could have predicted COVID. Could anyone have predicted? Maybe we could, but I never imagined living through and in the midst of a plague. Amen. You know, and living on an island, when I flew in and didn't see sugar or pineapple, I thought, what happened? You know. So give yourself a hand. Well done. And keep the well-doing up. It's a beautiful, beautiful time. As Blaine said, I'm back in my home state of North Carolina. I'm now on the western part of the state, so we flew all the way. We bring you greetings from the Atlantic Ocean. And it's 15 hours, if you wanted to know. It's a very, very long flight with a little stop in California to arrive here, but well worth every minute of it. Back in my home state of North Carolina, Asheville, the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains. And so I bring you greetings from Unity of the Blue Ridge here, Unity of Maui. They know that North Carolina is my home, but Maui will always hold a piece of my heart. In this spiritual community, you always hold a beautiful piece of my heart. When I inquired within about what to talk about, it was interesting. A couple things bubbled up, and very clearly I heard the words, my celestial canoe. Now, that's a term that I learned when I was here. It's a Polynesian term, and I believe it was Emma Very in talking about her mother, Nana Very, in that powerful book, Change We Must, I believe is the title of that book. I believe it was Emma who first used that term with me, my celestial canoe, and I had never heard of that. And as I understood it, it was a Polynesian concept that each of us have what is called a celestial canoe. That there is an aspect, a capability, a dimension of who we are. And that celestial canoe, the best word we have in the English language to describe it is imagination. But the ancient cultures understood that there was a part of us that was not located in the physical body, that there was a part of us that could transcend time and space, and perhaps understood what Jesus and the master teachers were talking about when they said, as it is in heaven, so shall it be on earth, that there was a part of us that could bridge and travel into the unseen realm, the realm of potentiality, the realm of spirit. There's a part of us that can travel to that dimension, that level of awareness, and could scoop up some fresh idea, divine idea, and then bring it back with us into this physical reality and to create things on earth. Isn't that beautiful? Our celestial canoe, our divine imagination. In Unity, the co-founder Charles Fillmore considered imagination as one of our spiritual capabilities. And so I wanted to talk about that today a little bit, and ask you to perhaps just put the word aside, any preconceived notion, what it may have meant, and let's just agree together that we're going to create an open space, an open mind. The psalmist David often said, create in me a clean heart and renew a right spirit. The Buddhists say, give me a beginner's mind. It's the same thing. Allow me to be the opening, to be the way for fresh ideas. How many of you know, if you've watched the news, you can feel it's time for some new ideas. It's time for some higher ways of being to come forth, and that we are the way, that followers of the way, that's what it means, that we are the way. That's what we're created to be. And so our imagination is that part of our being that allows us to conceive and carry divine ideas. Your celestial canoe allows you to conceive and carry divine ideas. Jesus, the master teacher, one of many master teachers, taught and would say, judge not by appearances. Well, if you don't judge by appearances, it requires you to engage your what? Your imagination. All the sacred teachings say, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That requires empathy. That requires imagination. How would I imagine if I were in your shoes? What would it be like? How would I like to be created? Jesus also taught, as other master teachers, the things that I do, you can do, and even greater. That also sparked the imagination. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine doing those greater things? Sometimes as we get older, imagination, we tend to push it a little bit aside for logic, and through our learning process, it's a necessary thing, but often we tend to then think of imagination as child's play. I believe our world is being shaken now, and I believe these beautiful islands hold the mana. You hold the potential here to imagine those beautiful rainbows that you see here, that you're holding space and imagining and keeping your imagination fresh. As children, we don't have to be taught how to use an imagination. How many of you had children that enjoyed the box more than the toy? That a bathtub could be the deep blue ocean, that the laundry basket could be a spaceship. Nobody had to teach us how to do that. We knew how to do those things. There was a study recently where they asked a group of 50 people, random people, children and adults. They asked one simple question. If you could change one thing about your body, what would it be? So think about that a second. If you could change one thing about your body, what would it be? And people answered, and like the first woman said, well, I'd like a smaller forehead. The first man said, I'd like more hair on my head. The other person said, I'd like my eyes to be bigger and further apart. I'd like to be thinner. I'd like to be taller. I'd like more defined muscles. Then came the children, and they asked the first child, the first little girl, if you could change one thing about your body, what would it be? And she was so excited, and she said, I would have a mermaid tail. The next little boy, if you could change one thing about your body, what would it be? I want a shark mouth so I can eat everything. I want wings so I can fly. I want legs like a cheetah. I want extra pointy ears. I want teleportation abilities. And so now I ask you, if you could change one thing about your body, how many would go for the mermaid tail? I mean, that, we tend to dial it down. We tend to dial it down, and our imagination doesn't, celestial canoe that can travel to heaven and earth. My celestial canoe sometimes is, I'm good if I can get it up to bump the top of the ceiling. And so today we want to stretch it a bit. We want to just recognize that it's not something that's just special that maybe you take out in this lifetime if you so desire. No. It's what you were created to do. You're created to bridge the two worlds of the seen and the unseen. What is that Hawaiian prayer? Akavale nehuna, let that which is unknown become known. That to bridge the world of potentiality with the world of spirit. And so we want to exercise our imagination, and if we're not, I can assure you, your imagination is being put to work. If you watch the news, if you're on social media, there is a lot of fear and worry and hate mongering out there, and it will be real quick to go down the rabbit hole, so to speak, that our imaginations can begin to use things like, oh, I could never do that, I'm afraid, and a tool of worry. And so harnessing our imagination, it doesn't mean we put our head in the sand. No. It means we are present to the facts. We're eyes wide open, and we bring a higher truth to the facts at hand, that we become the bridge of possibility in the face of whatever is. It's not an either or, it is truly a both and. I read the book Finding Neverland. You may have seen the movie, but the book, as most books do, take it to another level of depth. There's a character called Miss Biddle. There's a scene that I will never forget, because in this scene, Miss Biddle is walking down the street carrying a little box with holes punched in it. And the neighbor says, "What's in your box, Miss Biddle?" And she says, "A cat." And the neighbor said, "What for?" And Miss Biddle says, "Well, I have been dreaming about mice at night. And I'm scared of those mice in my dream, and the cat is to catch them." And the neighbor says, but Miss Biddle, you've been dreaming about them. They're in your imagination. They're not real." And Miss Biddle says, "But neither is the cat." And I relate to that, because how often do we use our imagination to armor up, to equip ourselves with things that aren't even happening, that aren't even real? So today, when we look at imagination, our celestial canoe, this part of us that can conceive and carry ideas, behold ideas, and bring them forth into our greater reality, we want to look at that in light of three things. Number one, what images do we conceive and carry about ourselves? Number two, what images and ideas do we conceive and carry about our potential? And number three, what images and ideas do we conceive and carry about what it means to be grateful? So the first one, what images and ideas do we conceive and carry about ourself, who we are as a being? When I first moved to this beloved island, I was telling my partner, I said, not long after I lived here, I signed up for a Hawaiian language and culture class at Maui Community College. And honestly, because I needed to learn how to pronounce the street signs. I needed to be able to pronounce a few things. Susan Offerman was so kind. Before I even moved, she started teaching me a word a week. I'll always remember malama was the first word to care for. But I signed up for that class, and if any of you have taken a class, that class at Maui Community College at the time, what happened, the very first night, a kumu walked in, clearly a Hawaiian man. I knew by his presence, and he had the tea leaves, and he did a clearing of the room, and the class was pretty full. I'd say about 25, 30 people, and he said, "Line up, and I want you to come write your name on the board." And then he went to the chalkboard, and he wrote two words, Kama'aina. He drew a line, and he wrote Malahini. Now, I wasn't sure what either word meant. I knew I had been on the island long enough, I understood Kama'aina discount. And so I thought maybe that meant local, and I knew I wasn't a local. I had no idea what Malahini meant. And so when I lined up, I happened to be the second person in line, and the first person in front of me, a gentleman, looked to be Polynesian, and he walked up and he wrote his name under Kama'aina. And so here I stood with a very scary-looking kumu, a group of people behind me, and clueless. And so I stepped up and very nervous. It took me back to elementary school. I wrote my name right on the line down the middle because I didn't know. I didn't know. And I went and sat down, and the kumu just kind of looked at me. Well, interestingly, by the time all 30 people got through, where do you think the majority of the names were? Right down the middle. People had followed suit. But that beautiful man stood up and said, whatever you get out of class, this is the most important thing. Who you consider yourself to be. He said, if you are Kama'aina means child of the land. And he said, we in Hawaii do not consider you a child of the land if you've been born here or if you just arrived here. We consider you a child of the land if you know you are a child of the land. If you know you are one with all of creation and you will love it and care for it as your very own. He said, that's what it means to be Kama'aina. He said, now if you're Malahini, which means visitor or stranger, if you're Malahini and you're just passing through, then we ask you to take care of this island as if it were your own. Well, I don't remember much more about that class, but that really rattled me, and something inside of me said, yes, that'll preach. That's so true. Who we know ourselves to be really shapes how we show up in life. And so with our imagination, to create daily practices that take us beyond the physical self, that really open our eyes and our heart to who we know ourselves to be. I was sitting in meditation one day. This is when I was living in the Seattle area. And how many of you know what a Russian nesting doll is? A Russian nesting doll is, you may start with this little teeny doll, and then there's another one just a little bit bigger, just like it, and then another. And it could be, you could have one this big, but then there's smaller ones inside of it. I was sitting during a time of meditation one day, and I saw myself like this little teeny Russian nesting Darlene doll. And in my mind's eye, in my imagination, what happened is all of a sudden it went whoop and got a little bit bigger. Whoop, got a little bit bigger. Whoop. In my mind's eye, it kept doing that until in a few minutes I was as big as the room, then beyond the room. In my mind's eye, I was seeing myself, a new version of myself, until it got so big, the bounds of my being became so thin that I was one with all that is. I truly had a oneness experience. And when I came back from that time of meditation, something in me had shifted. But I had a new level of understanding about who I was and what divinity was. I grew up Pentecostal and very much believed in a heaven and a hell and a devil and a God, and I was pretty sure that I was damned for hell. And you know how many of you have done that dance? And so trying to navigate, my way through all of that and knowing who am I really? I know that I am a being beyond this form. But in that moment, something happened and really opened up in me, and I got something at another level. I had heard, since I found New Thought, that there's a spark of divinity within you. But in my mind, I had imagined that like a chocolate. Have you ever had a chocolate chip cookie, but there was only one chocolate chip in it, or one macadamia nut? And it's like, if I could just find that darn chocolate chip, if I could just find it, if I could find that one morsel in there. And I had approached my divinity that way. I thought, okay, I'm a divine being. If I could just find that morsel of divinity in me. But what I got with that experience is that our divinity is in the reality of our being. You can't extract it. It's in your essence. It's not in just a little part of you. It's in the reality of your being. But whether or not you're embracing it in your current experience is completely a choice. You can never be undivine. You can never be disconnected from the source, but you can certainly think yourself apart. I'll give you another example. I had never heard of the word VOG, V-O-G, before I moved here. Those of you that live on this island, you know what it is to see the news and to see the VOG index. And so it's a part of reality. But as a girl growing up in North Carolina, it was certainly not part of my experience. It did not exist for me. And so for each and every one of us, there's things in our experience. You may not have personally yet experienced complete inner peace. You may not have personally yet experienced a lot of things. But when you really grasp the fact that they are truly a part of your reality, you see, VOG, I had never been in those conditions. I had never experienced those conditions yet until something moved me to another place and I connected with something that I didn't even know was here. When life is moving through, life is asking you, who do you know yourself to be? And what within the reality of your being that has always been there are you now ready to take hold of and embrace and make it part of your experience? She just said amen with her phone on the floor. So to our imagination, we conceive and carry images and ideas about our sense of self, our sense of being. So who do you know yourself to be? The second is our spectrum of possibility. As I said earlier, with our imagination, we can sure look at this world and say, there is a better way. Things don't have to be like this. and that, we are to be that way, that we open to greater possibilities. I was talking to Bob before the service, and I was looking over at the Ohana, and I just see how the property is being utilized in very creative ways. Well, somebody had to conceive of those possibilities. There's always divine ideas and possibilities that are seeking to be made manifest as we become available to them. And the good news is it's always available. The other news is it requires us to unplug from the reruns, to unplug from what we're being bombarded with, to unplug and to become the way, become the opening, so that those divine ideas and those higher ideas can come to us. Back in May of 2020, when COVID was first beginning to happen, and we really didn't know what to expect then, I read an article one morning. The headlines just captured me. The headline said this: unprecedented truce in notorious South African slums as gangs join forces to hand out coronavirus aid. I went on to read this article on my phone from the New York Times, and it said, South Africa is in the midst of a lockdown to contain the coronavirus outbreak, but that's also leading to food shortages. A local pastor in Cape Town had an idea, and so he called warring gang leaders to meet with him. He asked the gang leaders if they would enact a truce, and if they would, for the first time in their lives, for the first time in that South African history, if those rival gang members would call a truce and work together. He said, you gang members know this territory better than anybody. You have more courage than anybody. If you can work together, I will work with you to get food to people all over our villages. And went around the world, this headline, news-breaking event, the leaders of the rival gangs shook hands and said, we will call a truce in order to help, in order to do this. And so it was quite possible. The pastor, Andy Steely Smith, said, what we are seeing happen here is literally a miracle. The gangs did work together. They created a ceasefire to distribute food to the needy. And one of the reporters went up to one of the gang members, and he interviewed him and said, what do you think about this? And the young man said, I hope that this current ceasefire can be permanent, that we could begin to join forces in other ways, but I don't know if it's possible. Now, I'd love to go back, and I hope they'll do another story because I'd really want to know. Has life ever given you a taste of something that you're like, well, it is possible. I may not have that quality of love in my life, but I see that they do. I may not have this in my consciousness, but I see that this person does. I may not yet have this, but I see that it's possible. That life and our imagination is always asking us to consider, where do we impose limits on the spectrum of possibility? And so I would ask you to consider that. Where in your life, perhaps, are there any limits to the spectrum of what's possible? And is there any place you're feeling that divine urging? Sometimes it feels like divine discontent. What are you feeling ways that you're being called to move out into perhaps uncharted territory and to open to new ways of being? I read many years ago, and some of you probably know this, it's called My Life in 5 Chapters by Portia Nelson. It speaks to me so powerfully about our celestial canoe, our capacity to conceive and carry ideas. I want to tell you very quickly what she wrote as My Life in 5 Chapters. She said, I walk down the street and there's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in, I'm lost, I'm helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I still don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place. It isn't my fault, but it still takes me a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. I know it's a habit. It's my fault. I know where I am, and I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down a different street. Yeah, powerful. You see, Martin Luther King Jr. said, you don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step. The reason the story speaks to me so powerfully is we can stand back now and see all 5 chapters. But you can't see chapter 5 until you can manage to get through chapter 1 to chapter 2. That possibilities don't even open until we do the best wherever we can, when what we make the most of it, until we get to the edge of our own becoming. That's when possibilities open. And yet so often in our lives we feel like, well, if I can't maneuver my way all the way over there, hey, I'm not even taking the first step. And I'm not saying we don't use wisdom or good judgment. That's not what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. That new possibilities open as we put our whole self in, and new realities of being open as we apply our whole self. The Ugani Yogananda yoga teaching says, it is the worst thing when people do not know how to escape from the old rut. It is dreadful when they approach new conditions with their old habits. Just as it is impossible to open a present-day lock with a medieval key, likewise, it is impossible for people with old habits to unlock the door to their future. And so the gift of imagination is asking us, what are you being prepared and called to conceive and carry an idea? How is your spectrum of possibility opening up? So we conceive and carry ideas about who we know ourselves to be. The other part of who I know myself to be is, you see, I can't hold myself in the light and hold my brother or sister in the darkness. That as we really begin to come to know the truth of who we are, then I can see the truth of who you are. From the book I mentioned, Change We Must by Nana Very, I remember, what was the singer's name? Emma Very. Emma Very, beautiful singer who would sing at the church. I don't know if she still does, but would sing occasionally. Her mother, Nana Very, grew up on these islands, and she told stories about, she said one day when she was a little girl and living in the ancient years ago Hawaii, they fished for food, they lived off the land, and feeding a big family, was not an easy thing to do. And little Nana said one day she saw a malahini, a strange man walking through, and her mother opened up the home and gave that man some of their best food. And so when the man went on his way, little Nana at the time asked her grandmother, Grandma, why are you giving that man our good food? Why did you feed him our food? And she says, shh, I wasn't feeding the man. I was entertaining the Spirit of God in the man. And she said she never forgot that. I wasn't feeding the man. I was entertaining the Spirit of God in the man. So our imagination is always about asking us, who do we know ourselves to be, and who do we know one another to be? What do we consider and believe is possible for us? Yeah. And then the third is, how full is my spirit? How grateful am I? So who do I know myself to be? What do I believe is possible? And how full is my heart to be grateful? To really have a grateful heart also means to have a fresh heart. Have you noticed how sometimes old gratitude, even the things that used to warm our heart, over time can become great sadness? If there's not a way to continually be in new, fresh relationship with those ideas, with those particular things. And so how full is our heart to be grateful? I look around this beautiful place, and to me, wow, what a place of gratefulness. What a place of gratefulness. I also, when I was thinking about being here today, I was thinking about a number of people that I knew or knew better when I was here, but they're not here today anymore. Individuals like Holly Sanchez, Glenn Douglas, Mary Almway, Adisa Omar, Reverend Sky St. John, Ram Doss, Wayne Dyer. You take just a moment and just softly speak other names that you know. You see, when we think about those that we love and what it means to lose someone we love, it means to be moved with compassion. How many of you have watched the news and you've seen the Ukrainians until it has made you cry? I hope it moves us to tears. Jesus often said, and he was moved with compassion. Because when we get really moved with compassion, you see, it's easy to be angry. It's not as easy to be real and sad because we don't know what to do with it. But here's the catch and here's the joy. When we allow ourselves to go there, we become the opening. The tears will move, the sadness will be there. We see what is happening and realize it doesn't have to be that way. And it actually connects us with such gratitude. It's incredible, the gratitude that it can connect us with. And to me, that's one of the most beautiful things about this island. I want to thank each and every one of you. I am so grateful for the time I had here. I'm so grateful. Yeah. And just take a look out that door. How beautiful it is. Gratitude is a beautiful thing. Our Celestial Canoe is this beautiful gift that says, who do you know yourself to be? What do you believe is possible? And how full is your heart? How full is your heart? I've asked Robin to join on piano, and we're going to lead you into a song that says, open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Now, let's just pause a moment. That word Lord, does that make anybody feel weird? It may. But think about it as that namaste spirit. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord, as I want to see the divine in all. I want to see you. And then open the eyes of my heart, love. I want to be you. We're going to sing this a couple times together, and then we're going to take into a time of anchoring meditative prayer and then back out. And the song goes like this. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, love. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to be you. I want to be you. Sing it with me, you got it. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you now, love. And open the eyes of my heart, love. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to be you. I want to be you. I want to be you. I invite you to close your eyes. When we close our eyes and we bring our awareness within, there is no part of that awareness that is constricting. It is liberating. When we bring our awareness, as we would call within, we actually shift our awareness to the great all that is. It is in this realm in which we live and move and have our being. It is within this realm that we consciously access what we call this celestial canoe, where we can conceive of new ideas, higher divine ideas, where we can conceive of new possibilities. images, inspiration, illumination, all flow from this realm. Today we open our hearts and our minds to be that way, to be able to navigate between heaven and earth, to be the opening, to be the sacred chalice, to be the clear way where higher realities, higher ways of being are coming forth and coming into manifestation. Together we hold the state of our world. We hold in our hearts all that is broken and needs healing. And we realize that anytime there is something in need of healing, that the medicine on a universal level, that the medicine is already there. Before you ask, in order for there to be an asking, there is a solution. May we become instruments of the divine way. May we become instruments of light, of love, of peace. May we become instruments of ideas that bring healing and wholeness and beauty. May we become the instruments in the fullness of our being that radiate joy and light and laughter and love. We are the way. May we be conscious carriers of love and light every step of our way. So we sing, open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you everywhere. I want to see you. Now, love, open the eyes of my heart, love. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to be you. I want to be you. I'm going to ask you to open your eyes and to stand. And with your mask still on, I know it's a little weird trying to sing and sucking your mask up to your face, but hey, we've lived through we've lived through stranger things. So let's go for it. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Now, love, open the eyes of my heart, love. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to be you. I want to be you. One more time, both verses. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. I want to see you. Now, love, we sing. Open the eyes of my heart, love. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to be you. Last line. I want to be you. Would you turn to someone and give them that aloha? And then to your live streamers, to send them your love and your blessing as well. Thank you. You may be seated. I want to leave you with one other thought before I turn it back over to Blaine about imagination and when we know where to turn. Last story. This is about Einstein, the brilliant scientist, brilliant mind. Einstein was a bit of an introvert. He really liked to do what he did, and he didn't like interacting with people all that much. But yet, because of his teaching and the knowledge he carried, he was invited to come and teach and speak. And so he traveled around and he would speak. He didn't really enjoy it, and he would kind of do the same thing everywhere he went. One night, the same chauffeur carried him all over the place. And one night, Einstein was worn, weary. He said, I just wish I did not have to do this tonight. And his chauffeur had the wild hair and kind of looked like Einstein. He said, Einstein, I've traveled with you for 3 years now. I've heard your spiel. I could do it. Give me your hat. And Einstein said, sure. And so he gave his chauffeur his hat. And so the chauffeur pulled on the famous Einstein hat. And sure enough, he went up that night in a lecture hall and he delivered that presentation beautifully. It was flawless. And that chauffeur was so confident of himself, he did what he had seen Einstein do. He said, now I can take some questions. Are there any questions? He was pushing it a little bit. And so this man stood up, who was another scientist, and he had this incredible question about anti-theory or something. And so he just babbled off this really complex question. And now the chauffeur is standing there, and he said, sir, that sounds like a very complex question, but let me just show you. That is actually so simple, I'm going to call on my chauffeur in the back to stand up and he can answer the story for you. The moral of the story is, when you know where to turn, you can really go out there. My friends, you know where to turn. The power of imagination. Thank you. Aloha. Mahalo.
Well, this time I invite you to begin to prepare your tithes and your love offerings. Wow, what a morning this is, huh? Woo! Are y'all having a good time? Wow. I am inspired. Wow. So we're going to have some good dreams tonight. Yeah. And those of us who take naps in the afternoon, anybody take a nap? We've logged in, we've plugged in to that dream machine. So we're going to open ourselves up to experience the presence and the truth of who we are. And we won't let this stuff blow away, I'll tell you. I like this picture because it reminds me of our Unity community and in its diversity and in its joy. And it's so great to have this feeling returning to Unity on Maui. It's always been here, but it's finally we get to be together in a more normal way, whatever normal is, right? And I feel so grateful for the past of Unity on Maui, for Darlene, for your amazing talk today. Wow. You know, when one minister makes another minister cry, you know. So I invite you to hold your gifts and to give thanks for them. Knowing that the presence of God is moving in and through our gifts, through this beautiful spiritual center. And we know that this love that we're sharing this morning, this imagination, our celestial canoes, are connecting with the essence of all life. And in that awareness, let's affirm and pray our affirmation of prosperity together. It begins, through a grateful, giving heart, my mind and life overflow with the abundance of God's all-providing, infinite supply. And so it is. Thank you, loving Spirit, for these gifts that have come to us in love. We hold them, we bless them, we give thanks for them. We know that they're moving through this ministry, across this beautiful island, and not into the world. And we behold a world that's filled with love, with joy, with imagination, and with peace. And so it is. Thank you. All right, we've got just a couple announcements today. Today's flowers are offered by Kailani in celebration of her birthday. And she wanted to add a caveat to that for her birthday and for peace in the world. So, thank you. And if you'd like to offer flowers on a Sunday morning, there's a sign-up sheet in the back there, and just put down your name, the date that you'd like to bring the flowers, and what you'd like the flowers dedicated to. And we'd love to share your dedication and show off your beautiful flowers. This is so gorgeous. Have you ever seen such beautiful flowers? Yeah, amazing. We are so blessed to live here. You got to tell the truth on Sunday morning, Kailani. She says she grew them. Well, maybe she did. We are helping our friend Kurt, who is on a healing journey. And I know many of us have contributed to him. And so you can please continue to do so. If you do a search for GoFundMe Kurt Lee, you'll find a website where you can donate to him. And I want to also offer prayers for the family. I don't know if you know. Remember, Joy was here, his daughter was here last week. And I believe it was on Thursday, Joy's husband was mountain climbing in California, and something happened, and he died. So it's hard to imagine what that family is going through. And so I invite you to hold all of them in your thoughts and your prayers. And let's just take a moment to do that. And we see all of you, dear friends, our family, Kurt and your family, Joy, Louise, filled with light and love and strength in this difficult time. Know that we love you, we bless you, and we behold the presence of God in and as you. And affirm strength for ourselves during this difficult time. So it is. Also, it's Alan's birthday coming up pretty soon. Alan is going to be, he's kind of a junior around us. He's going to be 100 years old on April the 10th. And I believe that's a Sunday. We're going to have a little celebration for him after the service, and we'll have a bunch of food that he won't eat. And so feel free to come to that. And there's also a GoFundMe page for Alan to purchase this amazing chair, which will allow him to watch TV and sleep and eat and stay warm all in one place in his house. So thank you, Alan, for who you are and for being with us. And today after the service is our town hall meeting. We're going to share some innovative things that are happening here with our church and our sanctuary. Going to share where we've been and where we are. So please join us at 12:30. If you can go out and get something to eat and come back, that would be great. We do have to start the meeting right at 12:30. And also, our dear friend Cindy, as you know, passed away a few weeks ago. And so we're going to celebrate her with a celebration of life on Saturday, April 9th at 1 p.m. And that'll be happening right here. And Mike's telling me he'll bring some snacks to share afterwards. And what a bright light this woman is. It's so much for this spiritual center and for me. I'm so grateful for her. And Easter Sunday is coming up on the 17th of April. We're going to do 2 services right here. The services are going to be limited to 30 people in each service. They'll be at 9 and 11. And there's a sign-up sheet on the table back there. And you must have reservations in order to come to the service. And we will ask people to wear masks as well. Just sign up. There's a sign-up sheet on the table. Yeah. And there's for both the 9 and the 11 o'clock service. Or call Kelly. Yeah, Kelly will make the reservations as well. And her phone is up here. And it's also in our newsletter on a page that looks very similar to this. And I know Kate had her hand up. Yeah, the issue that we have is parking. It's not about how many people are in here. We can only park so many people or so many cars and have so many people in attendance. So yeah, you can come and sit outside on Easter Sunday. We will have the screen outside, but we really have to limit the parking. And I encourage you, I'm glad you brought that up, because I encourage you to carpool as much as possible. And those of us who are in our team putting the service together, I'm going to ask that all of us park down at the county building. So if you can do that on Easter, that would help us a lot, so we're all safe getting in and out of this beautiful place. All right, and Robin will be here on that day also. And, she's right behind me. Let's give another hand to Robin Fisher, yeah.
Thank you. You have all been so welcoming and warm. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. Oh, man. Thank you. But I would love to have some people up here on Easter Sunday helping me with some songs. So if you're interested in singing, and it's not choir, it's not that formal, it's not hard. We're going to try to make it light and easy and no pressure. But if you're interested, there's a sign-up sheet over there too. Put your email, then I'll just check in, and we'll get together. We'll learn some chants that are pretty easy to learn, and we'll come up here and add some wonderful Easter energy.
Yes. And we will have hula also on Easter Sunday morning. So it's going to be a great day. Sign up now. And why don't we stand and let's affirm and pray our prayer for protection together. Let's say it together. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. And let's sing the peace song together.
Let there be peace on earth, begin with
God bless you, friends. Thank you for being here today. See you next week. Aloha!
Where I live, they're all raised